Welcome to The Point. I'm Mindy Todd in my home office. Today we hear from the candidates running for state senate in the Plymouth and Barnstable District. Special election is scheduled for May 19th. Legislation passed in March does allow for early voting by mail for this special election. You need to apply with your town clerk, and you can do that via mail, email, or fax. And we'll have information on how that works at our website, capeandislands.org. Today we're posing questions on issues to the two candidates, Democrat Susan MORAN of Falmouth. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Mindy.
And Republican Jay McMahon of Bourne. Good morning, Jay.
Hey, good morning, Mindy. Good morning, Susan. And good morning, Cape Cod. Good to be on with you this morning.
Great. Now, generally in these debates, we give candidates a hard 2 minutes to answer questions, but because we can't see each other, I'm asking the candidates to keep an eye on the time and try to keep their answers to about 2 minutes. If they go on much more than that, I will jump in and remind them to wrap up their thought. If you'd like to pose a question, we ask that the question is posed to both candidates. You can do that by giving us a call at 866-999-4626, or you can send us an email, thepoint@capeandislands.org. These certainly are strange times, and I imagine very difficult to be campaigning and getting your message out to voters. So let's start with telling us why you want the job as state senator and the skill set that you bring to the table. And Susan, let's start with you.
Sure. So the reason that I wanted to run to be the Plymouth Barnstable senator is because it's the next step after over 5 years of community work in terms of actually making the initiatives that are common to both sides of the canal, such as clean water, good transportation, and superior road work and communications in terms of the entire district. It's an opportunity to actually have a voice at the State House and fund those initiatives. And that's what's going to be important as we move forward from this COVID, looking at things in new ways and trying things in ways that are going to be healthier, actually, eventually.
Still have a little bit more in a minute. You want to tell us something about your skill set?
Sure. So I have long-term experience in local government. I've been the chair of the Board of Selectmen for a couple of years. I remain on the board. I'm also chair of economic development for Barnstable County, and I sit on the county legislature, which I'm a deputy speaker for the Assembly of Delegates. So that really gives me a view of being in the room when economic development ideas come about. And as we go forward at this point in time, those are the inventive ideas and those are the great minds that we have in the Plymouth Barnstable District that will move us forward, whether it's in education or climate change, blue economy, green economy. These are new times that we'll be able to focus on, and my skills over the last 5 years that I've been honing and the relationships that I've developed at the State House and locally put me on a springboard to make that happen for the community.
Great. Jay, same question. Why you want this job and the skill set that you bring to the table?
Well, I want the job because I really care about people. I care about the economy, especially on Cape Cod and the 3 towns in the Plymouth County area. This job creates a terrific opportunity for someone like me who can argue effectively on behalf of clients. I've been a trial lawyer for 30 years. I've represented the underdog in many cases. I've had cases before municipal boards, state boards, federal boards. I've been in every court that's in the Commonwealth. Here's my point. I have seen things on Beacon Hill, watching it closely, newspapers and news articles and television broadcasts, and I have seen that the taxpayer is completely ignored. People look at the taxpayers, that is legislators, look at the taxpayers as if they are an ATM machine. We keep getting forever taxes on Beacon Hill. We've got some legislation on Beacon Hill, the so-called Safe Communities Act, which does anything but keep people safe, especially in this district. The Plymouth and Barnstable District are vacation destination points, and people come here to spend their money, and our economy is a 3-season economy. And I want to make sure that we have a plan for reopening after this pandemic ends. I believe we should have already reopened. We are close enough to be able to take reasonable precautions and allow our businesses to open and set up and get prepared for the summer season. But right now, that's not happening. And I'm the only candidate that has put forth a 10-point program for economic recovery here in the Plymouth and Barnstable District. So I encourage people to go to my website, www.attorneyjmcmahon.com. You will see my 10-point plan there for recovery, and you will also see my plans to help seniors during this pandemic and recovery afterwards.
I think we're going to get to some of those points too, Jay. And Jay, I'm going to start with you this time. The district consists of many small businesses who are concerned about the future, and there will no doubt be some that will not reopen. So what might be done to help small business survive?
Okay, well, first of all, we've got a lot of restaurants. The hospitality industry on the Cape and in Plymouth, because we're vacations destinations, is extremely important. We've got to get our restaurants up and going. And the way to do that is to create incentives so people will go out and that the restaurants will be full. In other words, during the whole day. So what I'm looking to do is to suspend the meal taxes on restaurants. I want to at least do it for 30 days to see how that would initiate business coming in. I want a 1-year moratorium on new business regulations. I want to reduce the sales tax down to 5%, and I want to have several sales tax holidays to encourage spending back into the district. I want to make sure that gas prices stay low, that we don't start taxing gasoline tax and kill business coming into the area. People drive into Cape Cod. Very seldom do they take in, like, say, the train or the MBTA, because, first of all, it only comes as far as Kingston and Lakeville. So people drive here, and I want people to be able to stay and enjoy the Cape and bring back our economy. We need to have an economic boom. And to that extent, I'm the only candidate that has been endorsed by the NFIB, that's the business groups, because I am pro-business. Now, if you go to Sue Moran's Progressive Massachusetts Legislative Endorsement Questionnaire, you will see that every question she answered in that questionnaire is anti-business. It would kill businesses on Cape Cod. And my plan is to revitalize those businesses and help employment plume on Cape Cod and in the 3 towns in the Plymouth and Barnstable District.
All right. Same question to you, Susan. What might we do to help small business survive?
So let's not ignore the elephant in the room. First, what we have to do is get a handle on folks' safety with the COVID. We have to get a handle on the testing. We have to get a handle on the antibodies and hopefully look at a vaccination. It's a 2-prong consideration. The second prong is that we have to look at and listen to what small businesses need now. During the first unemployment and paycheck protection program that the federal government put out, a lot of large businesses snatched up the money, so the fund ran out. We need to, as we have now coming out, a plan that's going to be a little bit more focused on those small businesses that need to survive. I've been participating in a local program that Troy Clarkson has a number of business guests, Bill Zammer, who owns many restaurants. The thoughtful folks in the Plymouth Barnstable District who own small businesses want to make sure that the consumer has a comfort level for safety. This isn't something about, waving a magic wand and we're going to jump forward. People are going to be reticent. That's understandable. So what we have to do, we've got to speak to the businesses directly, speak to the residents. There's an idea in Falmouth, for example, of closing Main Street so that there'll be enough distance between tables. We've right now got a pretty robust takeout service going. where there were discussions about how is that going to roll out. People have gloves. They have masks. There's a comfort level to use those businesses. We've got to look at the thinking completely out of the box and new ways of handling things, and we've got to get the money to those businesses right now so that they can survive until the implementation is figured out. The government, Governor Baker has just started a committee of experts to look at individual businesses and thoughtfully look at their needs, listen to what their suggestions are, and what would work. We can do that while we are getting a safer handle on the COVID, but we can't blithely ignore it and just plow forward.
Okay, next question. Susan, I'm going to start with you this time. Governor Baker yesterday announced that schools will remain closed for the remainder of the school year. Equity has been a major concern in the public school system. Standardized testing is also put on hold. Thoughts on how this all impacts MCAS scores and what this is going to mean going into the next school year?
Well, it's going to be different. I mean, we are, on the one hand, kind of all in the same boat in terms of the education. And I appreciate the leadership in getting the word out in terms of what parents can expect, what teachers can expect. I've been meeting with superintendents in the district about the challenges that they are running into. I mean, in terms of their learning to use, Zoom, for example, which is a computer platform that folks have been using for meetings. Really blended learning formats. These are tools that teachers have started learning and have been using, but it's something that's going to be ramped up. You know, the Student Opportunity Act that was passed, there's a lot of work that goes into the complying with the program. Those are the kinds of things that we certainly appreciate the legislature slowing down and taking some time to deal with what are effectively right now the important concerns of parents and students. We have teachers in the community who are driving around and keeping that connection with the students. In terms of MCAS and graduation, there's going to have to be, just like with other issues such as elections, this is going to be a very different year. And there are going to have to be requirements that are adapted or that are assumed to be, sort of checked off the box, that the reliance, for example, in college applications and looking more heavily at interviews, for example. Maybe those interviews get done by Zoom. We're adapting. We're doing things differently. We're a resilient society, and most importantly, so are our children. And they will, they're more adaptive at technology than we are.
Jay, same question.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, I just heard Sue. I didn't hear any solid policy or nuts and bolts approach, but I will say this. The elephant in the room, my opponent just a couple of weeks ago had a signature party for nomination papers, inviting a lot of people in to sign her papers. I mean, talk about a pandemic. That's the best way to start one and keep one going. And I take issue with that. But I'll tell you, the governor came out with a plan about getting the economy started and about doing it in measured response. I've been saying that plan for the last 2 months. I'm glad the governor is listening. But here's my point. We seem to be focusing on businesses which we call non-essential businesses. And yet, when I go to Stop and Shop, I see 100 people in the store. I go to Walmart, the same thing. People are getting out in certain designated areas. It's absolutely crazy for us to shut down the entire economy but say, oh, well, they need food, and so they got to go to these stores. Well, they need other things as well. Their lives cannot stop. The economy cannot stop. So to the extent of the schools and all that, I think they turned the schools all upside down when they did that. I have been saying from the day one of this pandemic, we need reasonable means, reasonable regulations, and reasonable precautions. Now, I see people with masks on all over the place. Okay, that's reasonable. I see people still going back and forth and inside and out of the post offices, liquor stores. That's reasonable, and that should be done anywhere and any place. Why can't we have the plexiglass that banks are putting in, that Stop and Shop is put in, that Walmart's putting in, that all the stores are putting in to protect the employees and also the customers? There's no question that this pandemic is winding down. There are fewer cases today than there were last week. There was 2,600 last week. There's 1,500 now in Massachusetts. We're well on the other side of the curve. People want to see this economy reopened. Businesses. The governor has listed some businesses as non-essential.
Okay, Jay, can you wrap up? Can you wrap up your thought, Jay? You're well over 2 minutes.
It's not non-essential. It is vital to your survival. And I am looking to see that people can present, that is, business owners can present reasonable means, reasonable precautions to keep their customers safe. And people know if they go into a store and it's haphazard.
Okay, Susan, let me give you do you want a minute for rebuttal?
Sure. There is grave concern over just one state opening up for nail or massage or personal service businesses. I think that is incredibly cavalier. There's no one that thinks that the economy is not important and that finances are a grave consideration for folks. And we are pushing for small business owners to get their fair share in terms of help financially from the government. But it takes science, it takes planning, it takes a track record. In fact, just this morning I was listening to your news program before this interview, and there are additional cases that have been discovered because there weren't the tools at the time to even get the statistics. Right now, there are other, the federal government has just stated that there should be, they're concerned that there might be a second wave coming. Right now, we can plan for the future. We can use some of the things we've learned now. Our climate is benefiting from not so many vehicles on the road. We're working at home in many places. And those are things that will continue and try to help businesses make more use of. But we can't be so risky as to make folks just feel like they don't need, they don't need this protection because they may.
All right. I'm going to have you to wrap up your thought. You're over a minute.
Sure, they may make someone else sick. That's the problem.
You are listening to The Point. Today we are hearing from the candidates running for state senate in the Plymouth and Barnstable District, Democrat Susan MORAN of Falmouth and Republican Jay McMahon of Bourne. If you would like to pose a question to the candidates, we ask that you pose the question to both candidates, 866-999-4626. That's 866-999-4626. Our email address is thepoint@capeandislands.org. Jay, your turn to go first. Roger writes, medical aid in dying permits competent adults with terminal illnesses the right to receive medication from their physician to end their suffering. Currently, the End of Life Options Act may be voted on by the Senate. Do you support the concept of medical aid in dying? And please explain your response.
Well, we talk about what patients and doctors tell each other and what the advice they give them. A couple of years ago, I was arguing on this issue about the opiate crisis. One of the problems we had at the time is the overreaction that government generally does, and it refused to allow doctors to prescribe opiates to patients who were dying under the threat that they might be, or under the concern that the patient may overdose on the opiates. Now, we're talking about people who are in the care of hospice. I got to tell you, these kind of decisions, either end-of-life care or terminal illness decisions, this should be between the doctor and the patient. And the doctor should be allowed to prescribe the medications that help keep the patient comfortable even in the dying days. Now, you might think that has always been the case, but it wasn't. I heard from people all over the state telling me that their doctors cannot prescribe the pain-killing opiate medication that was needed for their dying relatives. And they were angry about that because it was a law passed by the legislature that apparently did not have a lot of thought. These decisions should be between a physician and the patient, and they should decide how they're going to take their course, and I'm okay with that.
So you would vote yes then for the End of Life Options Act, yes?
I'm sorry, Mindy, say that again?
So you would vote yes on the End of Life Options Act. So you would vote yes to allow doctors to give their patients medicine to end their life should they choose that.
Okay, philosophically, I am in favor of a doctor and a patient making decisions. Okay. Now, when you ask me about would I vote for the bill, I would have to read the bill and the amendments that they attach to it, because a lot of bills come up with a name like the Clean Water Act, got nothing to do with clean water, and they put all kinds of other stuff in it, for instance, overtime pay for the MBTA. So I cannot tell you right now that I would absolutely vote for a bill that I see, and it's got tax increases hooked to it, because I'm also the only candidate that has taken a no new tax pledge. And I will not vote for a bill that's going to increase the taxes and actually go against the benefits of the people of my district.
All right, thank you. Susan, same question.
Sure. I don't think taxes have anything to do with the suffering and the end-of-life decisions that this legislation deals with. I would absolutely vote for it. I've been speaking with Roger from the beginning about the legislation. He has personal experience, which drives the reason that he started this proposal. And it's not about comfort. It's really apples and toasters here. Comfort is one thing that happens in medicine all of the time. The bill, in part, deals with doctors not having to risk themselves in a lawsuit for malpractice. There's a protection and there is some freedom that allows the patient, if they're able to make decisions, to be able to make one very important decision, which is because of their situation and suffering, they want to end their own life. And I am absolutely in favor of individuals being able to make that decision if they're in the competent state to do so.
All right, thank you. We're going to talk to Suzanne calling from Falmouth. Good morning, Suzanne. What is your question for the candidates?
Good morning, Mindy. I want to ask the candidates if they think that Governor Baker is doing a good job, or could he be doing more?
All right. And Susan, we start with you this time.
Sure. I think in general, Governor Baker is doing a good job on the COVID response. I applaud him for breaking ranks and joining the coalition of Democratic governors on the East Coast. I applaud him for making the decision about the school closing earlier rather than later, so that parents and employers and teachers and superintendents can make plans, so that students who are looking at graduation or MCAS and they're moving ahead can have an expectation of what's going forward. I applaud him for creating the council of experts that will look at this COVID virus from an economic and from a safety perspective, and look at individual industries and what they need, whether it's restaurants or municipal or any sort of business and also just individual independent gig workers, just the entire gamut. It's complicated. It's going to be different for various sectors, and the ball is rolling on what happens after we are in a safer position with respect to the COVID. I've heard information this morning that it may hit really hard over the winter flu season. That's going to be complicated. We need more testing to know whether it's the flu or whether it's the COVID-19. These are things that we need predictability, and we need consumer confidence to move forward. So I appreciate the fact that Governor Baker is taking time and making careful decisions and listening to experts.
Thank you. Jay, same question.
Well, I'll tell you what. I like the fact that Sue is supporting a Republican governor. It's good to hear that. I will tell you this, though. As a representative and as a state senator for the people of this district, here's my thoughts. I will support the governor when he has good initiatives that are going to benefit the people of this district. I will oppose the governor when he has plans that will hurt us. The governor had a TCI. It's called the Transportation Climate Initiative. And it's another one of those things that you could call it the clean water bill. It doesn't do anything about transportation. It doesn't do anything about climate, but it's a forever gas tax for the people in this district. We suffer because we, by and large, people drive from this district to Boston every day, drive up and drive back. Why are the roads clogged? Because prior to the pandemic, we've had the best employment rating in the last 50 years. Unemployment is very low. People are going to work every day, and yet the governor had a plan to jack up the gas tax by 17 cents a gallon, and to me, that punishes the people of our district. And there are no metrics at all as to if we start this Transportation Climate Initiative today and 2 years from now by charging people more money for gas tax, something's going to happen. There's no initiatives at all on that. So I'm glad in moving forward, my ideas on reopening the Cape, the governor has accepted those. I want to see Cape businesses open now. I don't want to wait another 6 weeks and then have them all have to file bankruptcy because they couldn't make it through the wait period to finally be able to open. So when it comes to the governor, I'm with him when it's good. When it's going to hurt the people, I will be against him. And I don't care that he's of my party. If he's got an initiative that's going to hurt the people of this district, I will oppose him, and I will be loud about it. I'll be in the press about it. I will let the people know that I am fighting.
Okay, Jay, we're going to start with you. Now, Jane is giving us a call from Falmouth. Good morning, Jane. What is your question for the candidates?
Hi, good morning, Mindy. My question is, what types of things are you hearing that is helping our senior citizens cope with the isolation from COVID-19?
All right, Jay, we start with you. Did you hear the
that
question?
Again, what's the? I didn't. There was a breakup in the connection. What was the question?
The question was she wanted to know what you're hearing about helping seniors dealing with isolation.
What am I hearing about seniors dealing with isolation?
Yes, I think she wants to know what we can do to help seniors who are isolated.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I have put forth a plan for seniors, not only for now, but when this ends, when the pandemic ends. I'm looking to lower the tax burden on seniors. I think seniors should be allowed to maintain their independence and not be taxed out of their homes. Right now, Susan has a plan that will increase taxes on long-term capital gains. Seniors are heavily invested. They've worked all their lives in this district, or at least in this state, and they're heavily invested on long-term capital gains. But Susan wants to tax that, and she says so in her questionnaires. So I followed that carefully, and I did the math. That's a 79% tax increase for seniors. They're on fixed incomes. So I'm against that, and I won't let that happen as long as I'm your state senator. I'm looking for long-term care steps that are needed to make long-term care more affordable for seniors. I'm also concerned about office hours, meeting with seniors. I will come out to them. I will come out to facilities. I will be glad to talk with them, hear their concerns, and address them personally, and that's the plan I have. It's on my website if you want to check it out.
All right, Susan, same question.
Sure. So I have to address the mischaracterization of taxing seniors. That's not the case at all. The fact that the wealthiest among us might be able to help balance the economy, that's a complete side issue. Right now we're talking about how are we going to help senior citizens. First of all, that's who the COVID virus is hitting most harshly. We are losing important fabric of our society. We're losing our veterans. We're losing our teachers. We're losing legacy folks who are just vulnerable to this really cruel disease. And the first thing we need to do is take care of them by getting a handle on this virus before we open up everyone to just be commingling and not have social distancing. That's number one. The second thing is we need to support all of the organizations, nonprofits, and volunteers who are out there helping directly. These are frontline folks, just like emergency workers or policemen, firemen. These are frontline volunteers that are helping seniors who need it. Some seniors need meals. Some seniors need health care. These are volunteers who are making sure that access is safe for those needs. In terms of I've been making a lot of campaign calls because I can't knock on doors to meet people, just for conversations, to hear from seniors. What is important to you? What do you see in your daily life? What, from your background, in your history, is something that would be useful now going forward as your state senator? I have been big on constituent services for the last 5.5 years that I've been in office. Everyone who I speak with, my job is to connect them with the right person who can fill their needs, or to just keep track and be sure their question is answered or their need is satisfied. That's something I'm going to continue as your senator.
You're listening to The Point. We are hearing from the candidates running for state senate in the Plymouth and Barnstable District, Democrat Susan Moran of Falmouth and Republican Jay McMahon of Bourne. And Jerry writes, Susan, your turn to answer first on this one. Jerry writes, some 33,000 Massachusetts grandparents have primary responsibility for the care and well-being of their grandchildren. The state has a commission on the status of grandparents raising grandchildren, but it has a single staff member, and the commission has concerns that funding might be scaled back because of the financial strains of the COVID-19 pandemic. What steps do you believe are needed to protect these kids and their grandparents during this pandemic? And would you make at least level funding of this commission a priority? Susan.
I absolutely, as your state senator, I would make level funding a priority. And the reason is this is an investment into our future, the future of our children. If you ask any teacher, any educator, my daughter taught 4th grade for years. She had an early heart attack, unexplained. I have 2 granddaughters. And my connection to education, not only as a grandparent, but to teachers, is that there is no better way to become a stronger, adaptable society and to take care of our community, our planet, than to really focus on our children. A lot of folks who are being raised, children rather, by grandparents, they obviously, first of all, are lacking that parental connection. The grandparents are doing usually a terrific job of helping with that. But they need support. They need resources, particularly with any child who may have a special need, may have a particular ability or challenge. We need to be able to connect these grandparents with the services they need so that they can really not only plug into to education and the social aspects, but have support themselves. These are heroes who are stepping up for their families and for society. So yes, I would support.
Jay, same question.
Yeah, of course, everybody would support that. Here's the issue with grandparents. As I said, I've been a trial lawyer for 30 years. I've represented many grandparents in the probate court going in to get rights, visitation rights, and in cases where the parents are unfit, to actually get guardianship for their grandchildren. Now, I commend the grandparents for standing up for that. Every situation is unique. Every situation is a set of problems that has to be addressed, and that's what the probate courts do. That's what the judges do. Now, I'm all in favor of commissions looking into why we have problems. I'm in favor of commissions. Why do we still have an opiate epidemic here in Massachusetts for the last 20 years with people dying to the tune of 2,000 people a year in the Commonwealth? I'm in favor of doing that sort of thing. I'm also in favor of looking, why do we have people going through our university systems in Massachusetts and now they're homeless? They're not being taught correctly, apparently, to compete in our society. So I'm in favor of looking into those social ills and problems. But I got to address seniors in particular. Now, Susan made a misstatement, and I got to correct her on this. Many seniors are living off of their long-term investments. That's how they're surviving. Be it a retirement plan, 403, 401k, annuities, they're living off of those plans, and Susan wants to tax those. She wants to increase the taxes, and if you do the math, it comes out to 79%, not 80, not 78. I've done the math of what she's done, 79%. People, you need to wake up to this. This is a tax and spend liberal who is coming after your money.
All right, let's let Susan respond to that. Susan, take a minute to respond.
Sure. So I don't think that any person who uses the roads, who uses the the public provided benefits that we have in this society. I mean, he's talking about the Fair Share Amendment. We're looking at transportation infrastructure, better schools, bridges, Route 3 traffic. If everyone, every family who has children, for example, spends time in a way that they will have more efficient lifestyles and a better lifestyle and more time with their family because they're not clogged up on Route 3 or the bridge. That's a benefit to our entire society. This is a tax for over $1 million to put towards infrastructure. We know that the bridges which join our district are failing. In fact, I'm happy that the federal government, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Department of Transportation are working together on funding improvements to the bridge. I think that we have the opportunity now where we're doing more work at home to give tax incentives to employers. It'll have the benefit of cleaner air.
Can you wrap up your thoughts, Susan?
That's what the Fair Share Amendment is about.
All right, thank you. We're going to go to Maura, who's calling from Falmouth. Maura, what is your question for the candidates?
Hi, my question for the candidates is, what should Massachusetts be doing to address climate change that it's not already doing? Okay,
and Jay, we start with you this time.
Mindy, I hate to say it, but there was something in the transmission here.
Sure, she wants to know
what that question is again.
Sure, absolutely. She'd like to know what we could do for climate change that we are not already doing.
Look, I know that climate change is my opponent's number one issue. You go to her website, you will see that she lists out there climate change. And there's a lot of policy on there, and there's a lot of lingo that's put out there. Climate change. And my opponent believes that that's the number one issue that's facing us. I'm more concerned about our response to getting businesses up and running. I'm more concerned about what's happening to people today. I'm more concerned about your jobs, your public safety. I'm not really all that concerned about what's going to happen 100 years from now when the climate is either too hot by 2 degrees or too cold by 2 degrees. I am an environmentalist. I'm a father and a grandfather, and I want to see the environment in a better place when I leave it to the next generation and when I'm gone. To that end, we already have agencies that are watching it, local agencies, state agencies, and federal agencies. I am more concerned when it comes to climate change. I'm more concerned about incentives. In other words, right now, people are driving fossil fuel cars and vehicles. That is the state-of-the-art technology that's available to the general citizen right now. You have to get to work, and you have to drive a car. And fortunately for us, the prices of gas are down to about $1.70 here in Buzzards Bay, and in any event, probably $1.75 or $1.80 in Falmouth because it's 5 cents more when you cross the bridge. So I'm concerned for the environment, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm more concerned about public safety. I'm more concerned about watching Beacon Hill when they take more money on another forever tax on the people of this district. So that's what I'm fighting for. And another thing, I want to talk about when we talk about the climate and we're talking about the bridges and we're talking about it. I live in Bourne. I've lived here in all my life. So I use these bridges every single day, several times a day. Now, I know that the Army Corps of Engineers has a plan, and they're developing the plan to replace these bridges. It's not something that the state's going to do. We don't want the state being involved in this. We want the federal government to pay for those bridges.
Okay. Can you wrap up your thought, Jay, please?
Let the whole nation chip in to pay for those bridges, not for us. Now, people was not for the state government, certainly. So now we're saying, well, they're waiting. How come the bridges aren't being replaced right now? They do not even have the design of the type of bridges that they want to put up yet. So these
all right, let's move. We don't want to run out of time here. So, Susan, you want to answer Maura's question about climate change? What we could be doing that we're not already doing?
Sure. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is stop ignoring it. When climate change, especially after the COVID, really presents an opportunity for jobs in the economy. One thing this district has in common, we are a tourism economy. We are almost entirely, 5 out of 6 towns are surrounded by water. We need storm resiliency plans that will lower homeowners insurance. We need I've done a solar on the landfill program with the Falmouth Economic Development Council that's been very successful and returned over $1 million to the town already. Representative Peake, when I was at the State House testifying against Holtec, was talking about a forestry program. These are things that really protect our chief investment for most of us, which is our homes, from coastal erosion. For our towns, we've got to relocate infrastructure so that it's out of the floodplains. We have to reduce our energy usage by 20% in the next 5 years if we're going to make a real impact. Our home values are going to die if we have continuous algae plumes because we don't look at our nitrogen mitigation. These are all important things that we can all do every day: reduce, reuse, recycle. Thank you, Maura.
All right, thank you for that. And we're going to move into closing statements. I'm sorry for the callers and emails that we don't have time to get to. Thank you for sending those. Susan, we are going to start with you. 2 minutes for closing statements.
Thank you, Mindy, CAI, and all the listeners. Now, more than ever, this district needs a fiscally smart leader who's a proven coalition builder to fight to keep our local economy afloat during this time of social distancing. Having been endorsed by Senate President Spilka, Senators Sear and Pacheco, Representatives Peake, Fernandez, Cutler, and Lenatra, as a Democrat, I can join the Senate in a leadership position to push bipartisan legislation for individuals, families, especially frontline workers in healthcare, public safety, education, and essential services who are putting themselves in harm's way while we fight for testing and tracing necessary to develop a vaccine and beat this virus. In the meantime, let's not make it more dangerous for those frontline workers by inciting discord or by working against folks who are using the tools we do have as individuals, like social distancing. Simultaneously, while letting social distancing do the work of getting us to the other side of the curve, we must build consensus for safe back-to-work plans by using science. Just look at the inventiveness, teachers using Zoom, employers using technologies to support working at home, which has had the benefit of less admissions. We are the same nation that climbed out of the Great Depression, led by President Franklin Roosevelt's back-to-work programs, because we all put an oar in the water and pulled together. The innovative ideas I've championed in the past as a local and regional leader are foundational to the challenges we face now. The relationships I've forged equip me with the immediate respect of my fellow legislators to use every tool necessary to get the district up on its feet as quickly as possible after it's safe to do so. I'll be a tireless and unsinkable advocate for you on Beacon Hill, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jay, 2 minutes for closing statements. Jay, are you there?
Can you hear me? Because there's a...
No, there we go. Okay, now we hear you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep, nope, go ahead.
All righty. Thank you. I want to thank everyone for listening to this debate. You're going to see that there is a very clear distinction between me and my opponent. I am concerned about the individual person and the individual business here on Cape Cod and in the Plymouth Barnstable District. I'm the only candidate that has a plan and has posted it on my website for economic recovery after this pandemic. I encourage you to go to my website, www.attorney, spell out attorney, J-J-A-Y, McMahon, MCMAHON.com. You go there, you will see my 10-point plan. It is reasonable, it makes sense, and it encourages business, and it will stimulate the economy. I'm the only candidate who has a plan to help seniors. Look at my plan on my website, and you will see I've got short-term and long-term plans for seniors. I have invested a lot in this district. I've lived here all my life. My business has been here all my life. I've been a lawyer. I've also been in law enforcement. I'm also former military. So I've been around. I care about the environment. I do care. I actually have solar panels on my roof of my house. I am into incentives, not punishing people. In other words, I don't want to tax people to death. I actually have your back on Beacon Hill when it comes to taxes. I'm the only candidate to sign a no-tax pledge. Another thing. Now, although my opponent talks about her legislative experience as an Assembly of Delegates and all that, yes, that's true. She is on the Assembly of Delegates, but she has not stood up for your best interests. I'll give you a...
All right, Jay, we have to leave it there. I'm sorry. Special election scheduled for May 19th. Thank you both, Susan Moran and Jay McMahon, for letting us know where you stand on the issues. You can find more about early voting at our website, capeandislands.org. I'm Mindy Todd. Thanks for listening.